Well, here we are, guys. Another moment of truth, this time with the 1962 BSA Super Rocket. And so I've just added some non-ethanol fuel. I've kicked it over a few times trying to get the oil circulation started at least. And I'll check the oil in just a minute, hopefully when it starts. So here goes. I'm going to start by releasing some fuel into the carburetor. I hope that works. I'm flooding them. It's a bit... I'm glad I got those filters on. And I've got new lines as well. And new filters actually, so... just flooding the carburetor. Alright. Moment of truth, here goes. Of course no ignition or anything. This is it, so... let's try it. Oh, choke, and choke's on full. Auto advance here, I'll adjust that when it gets started hopefully. And here goes. Okay, a bit more fuel. Not even getting a splutter. It's leaking out of the float bowl. Alright, let's try that. If not, I'll start messing with the choke. Well, that's helpful. I think it was fuel. Perfect. Oh my gosh, that sounds sweet, doesn't it? It's leaking at the float bowl. That's the choke off now. Oh, there's some oil out of there. Ah, where's that coming from? Oh, it's the oil line. Okay, I'll shut it off. Stop, stop, stop. There's some oil coming out of the oil line, the oil feed. I can see it dripping out from there now. Ugh. Actually, it might be the scavenger pipe. It's the feed to the rocker covers. I also need to top up the oil as well. I didn't top it off. And I think that's still leaking on the carburetor. It is. Ooh, quite a bit actually. So I'll shut that off. I still want to take it for a ride today if possible. Okay, it's just a few minutes later and I'm drying off those cloths before disposing of them. And here's the bike. It was a bit of a spillage problem there, but figured it out, I hope anyway. This petrol tap, this petcock, was leaking, not only from underneath here, but also here as well. So I've actually taken this off. I dropped all the gas out, obviously, took this apart, and I've pressed this in. So this is no longer functioning, and I may order new taps altogether, just do away with that whole problem. So that seems to be the carburetor that's resolved. And then on the other side, this one seems to be working okay. So we'll try that. And then the oil leaks. Yeah, not sure if you can see. It was the scavenger feed here. That just needed tightening up all the way up to the rocker boxes. It's better for now, which means only one thing. It's time for a ride. Oh, before I do ride, these cables are awful. I haven't replaced them yet, and the reason for that is I think I might be replacing the bars. They just look like a massive wingspan, and they're dead cool, but I'll have to see what they're like to ride on the bike. If I don't like them, I'm going to swap them for the Western bars that you get on the Triumphs and BSAs. Actually, on this model, the Super Rocket, and then I'll get new cables. But if I do like these bars, I think I might have to get custom cables made. It's a nice looking bike, isn't it? Real happy with that. And of course my instruments are still out with Greg, and I've just tied up these cables. I think that's the Speedo or the Taco. Alright, so this tap works, I think, for now. Yeah, I'm gonna get new taps, I think. Alright, hopefully it won't leak again. I think that's it. Alright, here goes. Choke is off. Ooh, kickback. That must be advanced. Okay, haven't even tried the clutch yet actually. Those bars are about 6 feet apart. Okay, one up. Okay, didn't throw me down the street. Woo! Wow, that is fast. Okay, that'll do for now. I'll fix that carburetor problem. Good morning, we are back in the garage, And what a fantastic, exhilarating ride that was up and down the cul-de-sac. And my apologies to my wife Jane for nearly running her over on the sidewalk, the pavement. As you could probably tell, it was running extremely rich. And I was trying to figure out what had changed between it running so well, or reasonably well, on the driveway, and then when I rode it up and down the street. And I realised a couple of things. Well, the first thing is the driveway was on a bit of an incline, and I'm thinking what's clearly happened in my mind at this moment is the carburetor's flooding to the extent where it's just overloading the system with fuel, and that was that super rich running that we saw and heard. So what I've done is I've taken off the air filter, thinking that the choke slide had stuck. And I've checked that and it's absolutely fine. One thing I've just noticed though is here under this banjo, there's a filter under the banjo fitting. There's a fibre washer there that I must have fitted by mistake. So that needs to come off, because what that'll do is it will lift the level of the float needle, which means that the fuel level will be higher, and that could explain why it's flooding. So that's one possible explanation, so I'll take that out. The other thing is I thought it could be the air filter as well, and I tried it with the air filter off and that didn't make a difference, so it's not like it was getting bogged down with the air filter. I also wondered if it might be something to do with the fuel delivery on the other side. You remember I've shut this one off completely. But the other one, I mean, clearly fuel was getting to the carburetor because it was flooding, but it might be some kind of erratic flow as well. So I'll do a flow test on that other petcock, that other fuel tap. So the immediate next steps are, I'm going to take this fibre washer out, replace this. I'll do a flow test on the other fuel tap on the other side, just to make sure that the fuel is flowing nicely. And then I'll try and run the bike. If it's better, perfect. If not, I'll take the carburetor off. I might actually remove the choke assembly altogether. I'll check the needle position for the clip. I'll check all the jets again and wear and tear. Remember, this is the carburetor that I worked on. I think what's concerning me is that it seemed to work just fine on the driveway. I'm also going to remove and replace these fuel lines as well at some point, because that was just how it was held together is a little weak, and they're pretty stiff now. They get brittle over time. See, the banjo filter in of itself is the washer, so I don't know why I put that on. Well, just a silly mistake, but I mean, it's not very thick. Seems almost too thin to make such a difference in the flooding. The tickler seems to be working okay, so it doesn't look like it's stuck or anything like that. And the float itself is a genuine amyl, and that doesn't look like it's been catching on this boss or anything like that. The other thing I realised is I had the manual advance retard lever at full advance when I was starting the bike. I know that now, so going forward, obviously I want to retard the ignition on the magneto before starting the bike, and then open it up to full advance when the bike gets going. Okay, let's try this again, and even the crow showed up for the second attempt. I've left the large clear pipe on, just for now. Alright, so that's fuel on. Dripping already. Yeah, that's pulling the gas in as I tickle, no problem. I'm leaking quite a lot. Nip that up. All right, I've got the manual / advance lever on retard, pulled back. I've got the choke on, and so we'll just give it a try. No, I don't think so. I'll let that warm up just a little bit. Okay, let's carry on trying. I would have been surprised if that little thin washer, removing that would have fixed the richness. Who thought it was a good idea to have a float bowl split horizontally? So I open the throttle, there's no choke there. I put on the choke, yeah, and the slide is way down there, and it lifts as I take the choke off, and the throttle valve goes all the way to the top. I feel the needle go up and down. That's getting harder and harder to do as I get older. Here's the carburetor off the bike and back on the bench again. Everything still looks clean, but of course I haven't taken it apart yet. This is the choke assembly that I'm actually going to dispense with for now. I'm going to put that to one side. I'm not going to refit it to the bike, but I will blank off this hole here in the cap of the carburetor where normally the choke cable passes through. I did check the position of the clip that holds the needle, and it's in the right position. It's number 3. I'll check this on a surface plate just to see if it's become a little warped. And so it's just a matter of taking this carburetor apart completely, just to check everything looks to be okay. One thing that I did forget to mention earlier is that I had turned the air screw out. It was set at 1.5 turns out, which is the factory setting, so to speak, and I took it out to 2, in fact I think 2.25 turns to try and lean it out, but that again didn't make any difference. Okay, this is the carburetor disassembled and on the bench, and I've checked all the jets. I did find one thing. This main jet was 300 actually. I put it to one side, and I've got a 290 in here now, which is the standard setting. So I've made that smaller. That's a 290. The needle jet was fine, 106. The pilot jet's correct, 25, although I have swapped that for another one. Try not to introduce too much variability, but hopefully one of these things, as long as I know what I have changed, we can get to a process of elimination to figure out what it was that fixed it. Hopefully. The throttle valve number 3, that's correct. Carburetor is correct. I'm going to put this original cover back on as I mentioned. Before I start reassembling all this, I think what I'll do is I'll just check this for squareness on a surface plate. Yeah, there's a little bit of rocking there. So I'll just rub that down a little bit, see if we can get a tighter fit for the cover. And so I might not actually use sealer. I might just do this first, and then if it still leaks, then use some sealer. So extremely fine. I'll clean this all up before I put it back together. Just takes the edge off. See if that's any better. Yeah, that really didn't take much at all. And I've just added a nice bolt for the cap here to plug the choke hole. This is the hole where the cable goes through for the choke, and I've got a nylock locking nut on the other end of this bolt. It looks quite nice. This hole, or these holes actually, don't have threads, and so I needed to put a bolt in there that I could lock on the other side. So then this just goes back in here, that little slot there goes into that recess there. I'm also going to leave the clip on the third position, the middle position. Otherwise I'm going to start introducing too much variability. So the biggest change right now is, well, hopefully I've stopped the leaking, and then I've changed the jet, the main jet, from 300 to 290, and just generally went through the whole carburetor and everything seems fine. So we'll see if just taking the whole thing apart has rectified it. Really pleased to have found this. This is a sight glass for a monoblock float bowl, and it's just essentially a plastic or perspex cover that you put over the float bowl instead of this cover, that allows you to see what the float level is. And so all I've done is I've just placed it over the original cap, and you may or may not know, but there's a little, I think they call it a nub, but basically a little dimple under the M. That denotes the float level of the carburetor. So all I did here was I placed this over that and just marked where it is on this plastic one, so that when it's on the bike it will be easier to read. So that's going to go on there now, and then I'll fit this on the bike, and then we can do a float level test. It's not quite as pretty as the Ducati bevel gear gauzer, but this should be quite interesting to see what happens. The last thing I wanted to check before I put it back on the bike is the fit of the throttle slide, the valve essentially in the bore. And I think I did this after we straightened out this manifold here. It's got a little bit of play. I mean, that might explain some of the erratic idling, as it lets more air in, and there's not much I can do about that. If that becomes a problem, I might have to replace either the valve or possibly even the carburetor, or get it re-sleeved or whatever. But for now, it does run up and down there nice and snugly, but there's definitely some wiggle. Again, this throttle cable's had it, but this'll do for now, just until we get the bike running a bit better. Okay, that is the carburetor fitted, and I changed the colour of the dot. I couldn't see the black dot with the black float behind it. So there's a little yellow dot there that I hope you can see. And now I'm going to turn the fuel on the other side. That's the only tap that's working right now. And let's just see if this float level comes up to here. The bike is on its tyres, although the front one's in a chock, but it's not raised much, maybe 1/4 of an inch at the most. Okay, let's see if we can get this tap open first of all. Here it comes. All right. That's the fuel turned on. And then of course if I tickle, which I shouldn't really need to now because it's completely full, yeah, it's flooded it now completely. I suppose we have to run the bike next just to see how that level is maintained when it's running. So I'll leave this on for now. Look, it's not even leaking as well, so hopefully that rubbing down on the surface plate helped a lot. I must admit that's much higher than I expected, but that might be norm. I thought that was it, that was as far as it should go. So I'll clean the spark plugs, put them back in, and we'll give it another ride. And it's a Sunday morning, so I might have to wait a few minutes until the neighbours wake up. Okay, the bike is outside again. It looks like the clear glass viewer is still holding up, no leaks that I can see, but you will see that the float level is pretty high. So I'm not going to flood it this time when I try and start it. The other thing I forgot to mention is that I put the original spark plugs back into the bike. I've cleaned them up. I know that's more variability, but hopefully one of those things has done the trick. So let's see if we can get this bike idling and running better. As you can see, the choke has gone completely now and it's blanked off underneath there. Okay, here we go. Just put a little bit of retard on the ignition. I haven't tickled it at all, of course, but that's a bit better, isn't it? Oh my gosh, what a difference. Just turned up the throttle stop. Wow, what a difference. Oh, the float level is right where it should be. I'll show you that in 1 second. Fantastic. Well, that's a bit better, isn't it? Oh man, it even starts better. The black smoke's gone. Just slightly above now. What I will do now is I'll start looking at the air screw. I think I set it back to the original 1.5. That's back to 1.5. You could tell it was dropping off a little bit there. Well, you know what this means, guys. I have to take it for another ride now. Okay, here we are again. Let's try this. Give it a kick. yeah, it's awesome. A lot more civilized today. The bars are massive, but I do like them actually. They're not very straight though, I think they were bent. So I might replace them. The clutch works fine. Third, fourth. The clutch needs just a little adjusting, as does the lever. Well, that was fantastic. I loved that. I've got a little bit of fine tuning to do and then awesome. Oh, I just want to carry on riding, but we'll save that for another day.